First of all, congrats to this beautiful movie.
Thank you.
When have you decided to bring this new adventure to screen?
Well, I never really intended to make the film from the beginning, but I was always documenting little things along the way. And I was documenting these return of biodiversity, birds and insects and this plant life and animal life that was returning. And it wasn't until year 5 that I saw how that was actually functioning to balance out our farm against epidemics of pests and disease. So I realized that I had inadvertently been capturing the key players, the keystone players, as they say, in the regeneration of an ecosystem. And I knew that was the film that I had to make. And so I had been collecting some footage, and then I added, the next 3 years, I added an intensity of collection of footage and stories that threaded together this whole thing of how this farm was now functioning like an ecosystem.
Yeah. And what could the audience expect from the movie?
Well, I'm not really sure what they could expect. Maybe to begin to have a greater awareness for the profound implications of biodiversity, not only just on the farm, but on our planet. And that there is this incredible immune system that we are a part of on our planet. It's called the ecosystem. It's truly like a human immune system. It's based on diversity. And the more we do to enhance its diversity, the more it finds equilibrium. The more we do to compromise its diversity, the more it struggles to find balance. And so I think we may be seeing evidence of a struggling immune system. And that experience that I have had on the farm with my wife and our team over 8 years has taught me the power of our human force of nature to affect and influence an ecosystem in a way that is quite profound.
And what message do you want to leave with this movie?
That there is infinite possibilities for collaboration within a beautiful and complex ecosystem. Yeah. And that all of our answers about even the human condition, our lives, the secrets to our existence can be found the deeper we look into nature. It's mirrored back to us in poetic form, and quite profoundly, for me, it's been the most important discovery was this, the value of a reconnection to it. It's changed the way I've seen, all of life, and I didn't expect that.
Yeah, and for me also was interesting that it seems like everybody and everything has his place and his function in the system, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think nature is less about right and wrong, and it functions more based on consequences. And I think as humans we like to be like, well, this is right and that is wrong, and we like to have everything in a neat order of value. But the ecosystem teaches you this far deeper, more complex truth, and that is there is these consequences that ultimately define for us a real truth about what it means to be alive and the requirements of our accepting things that we don't find very acceptable. Yeah, I think that was something also that was unexpected.
And you're coming from the place of a filmmaker,
yeah.
Or a director. What does it prepare you in a way to do your farm life?
Well, I think in documentary filmmaking, you realize, so like in a narrative film where there's a script, they always say God is the director. But in documentary filmmaking, sorry, let me back up. I'm going to say it again. In narrative filmmaking, where there's a script, the director is God. He or she decides how the story is going to go. But in documentary filmmaking, they like to say that God, or nature, is the director. And you have to be willing to be way more open to being able to see these opportunities to coexist with it.
Yeah.
You know, so it requires a level of humility where you admit to yourself you don't have the answers, and you're patient with the time that it takes to get past failure.
I love the moment you said in the movie that Todd told you or shows you
Me, yeah.
How to see the world in all the pieces and everything plays together.
Yeah. I learned from my dog how he was able to decode the mysteries of life by staring at something for a long period of time and smelling it, you know, seeing it, tasting it, and hearing it. He was decoding it through this level of awareness that most of us humans are incapable of prioritizing as a way to problem solve. And I didn't feel comfortable calling myself a farmer until I realized it was a title that is earned in a different way than I expected, because I thought you were a farmer when you had the answers. But I realized after 5 years, I felt comfortable calling myself a farmer when I admitted that I didn't have answers. And that level of humility allowed me to sit deeper and more still in moments where there was incredible failure and embarrassment. And that takes a courage that I didn't realize was important in what it means to be a farmer. And so in actuality, being a farmer is more about admitting the fact that you don't know the answers, but you're willing to stick through it and trying to figure it out, you know?
But for me, it seems like during the film you said what the goal of your wife and Ellen, how they wish the farm will get, or how the idea of them, that idea of the farm they have, but was your idea at the beginning of the farm?
What was my idea?
Yeah.
I wanted to believe in what Molly believed in. I just was more skeptical because I didn't understand, and I didn't believe for sure that all of this, I didn't believe for sure that the reawakening ecosystem was going to solve the problems that we were hopeful it would solve, because there was no guarantee in that, you know? So I questioned it more. Yeah. And I made sure to put that into the film because it was honest. It didn't mean that I didn't want it to be true. Of course I wanted it to be true. But men have a harder time with being vulnerable.
And to dream a little.
Yeah. And they don't want to be, men aren't comfortable with being proven wrong. And that's an unfortunate characteristic that's encouraged in a lot of men.
And maybe to follow the direction of somebody.
Maybe so too, yeah.
Yeah. But I really find it so brave that you left your life and by this land of nothing at first. Haven't you been scared?
Have I been scared? Terrified. We've been terrified through the whole, I mean, there's been moments where it's been very terrifying. And I'd say years 3 and 4 were the most difficult for us. You know, we had an untimely parting of a mentor that was very important to us. So we didn't have a way to ask for help and ask questions. It wasn't as easy. But there has definitely been a strong belief in the potential that exists once we were to rebalance this ecosystem.
Okay. Is there any day in your farm life where you aren't faced with trouble or problems?
You know, there's every day, but I think what you begin to see is that failure and these problems are part of farming, and you spend less energy panicked because you realize you accept it, and you accept that there's an incredible reason to have hope. Because there's a self-reliance that you have that you know if you just keep moving forward, you're going to find a way to exist with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I found this beautiful quote of Albert Einstein. I'm not sure if you said it too in the movie. Look deep into the nature, and then you will understand everything better. Do you think the nature would make us or could make us as human being better?
Absolutely. And Albert Einstein wrote that quote as a letter to a friend who had just lost his wife, who died. And he was lamenting to Albert Einstein that he didn't understand why this had to happen. What do you say? Why did she have to die? And he was saying to his friend that the impermanence of life is the fuel that drives all of life that we know. And to really understand the value of what it means to be alive, we have to have reverence for the death that happened before us, for us to exist. And I think that there is incredible possibility, or is incredible potential to understand and gain perspective about the human existence through the understanding and the complex interworkings of nature. And I hope that for everybody on this earth and on the planet, I hope for them the opportunity to have some form of reconnection to the very thing that has given them their entire existence.
Yeah. And what could be the first step to go back to nature, or find a more respectful way with the nature and the animals?
You could volunteer on a farm. You could grow a plant on your front porch. You could start a farm. Or you could begin to understand. Pick one animal, one insect that's got a reputation for being bad, and study the purpose of that bad insect or the purpose of that bad animal. What is its purpose in the ecosystem? And it'll change the way you see everything in nature, because everything that exists has multiple purposes that add to the balance of life. And then you begin to see that there is no simple good and bad players in the world. There's an interconnected dependency that the whole web has on it. And I think that can be very profound for some people.
Yeah. And you also said in the movie, Todd gave you the first or real purpose. How would you describe that for people who don't have animals?
I think we often ask for, we're looking for ways to find happiness in our life. And what I think we undervalue more than anything else is contentment. And being content is the baseline of happiness that keeps you from dipping too far down, having the extreme experiences of highs and lows. And contentment is derived from caring for something outside of yourself. And our livestock guardian dogs that protect the sheep are content because their role in life is to care for the sheep and to protect them. So I don't know if they're happy, but I know that purposefulness for them is a form of contentment that I aspire to.
Yeah, and there are these scenes where the chicken get eaten by the coyotes, I think, and all that. How could you step back and say, I don't shut them down, or
shoot the coyotes?
Yeah.
How do I step back from that?
Yeah, because as an animal lover, it's like, I understand why you do it, but it's so hard.
Well, so I had 350 chickens get killed by a coyote.
Yeah.
And so my team rightfully was like, why does one coyote get to live but 350 chickens have to die?
Yeah.
It's complicated. But then when I kill the one coyote, I realize that's not the last coyote I got to kill. There's probably 13 more coyotes. So do I just keep killing coyotes? Or do I try to understand how to make it so that it's a little bit more difficult for the coyote to kill the chickens? And do I allow myself to become motivated to not kill the coyote because I understand its purpose in the greater ecosystem? And that's what the film discovers around halfway through the film. We find the role of the coyote beyond it just being a pest. And that was the motivation that pushed me to find a deeper way to interact with it than just to continue to kill it.
Yeah.
But I don't know, it's imperfect. You could look at whether I did the right thing or the wrong thing by allowing 350 chickens to die.
No, in the end it's right, yeah. It's like
No, we'll see. Only time will tell.
And if you can go back to the time you had this farm,
yeah.
Would you do the same again?
Yes.
Yeah. What is the biggest thing you learned from this adventure?
That the regeneration of biodiversity is completely possible, and that without biodiversity there is no chance of our ability to live in a stable and inhabitable planet, and that the regeneration of soil that has been destroyed is possible, and the nutrient density and depth of flavor make all the hardships in farming this way incredibly worth it. I actually feel more hopeful now about the climate issues based on our 8 years of experience, because I see that with a consciousness we have incredible power as a human force of nature, which we are. We are a force of nature. And that consciousness is incredibly powerful when directed in a collaborative way. So I didn't expect to come out of this feeling more safe and inspired and having more hope than and having hope, which I have a lot of now.
And to look to the future, do you have still film plans, or is it more like just farm?
I don't know. I have no idea what I'm going to do next. I think at this point I'm just focused on the farm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And
writing. I write illustrated children's books now. That's what I do in my free time.
That's great.
Yeah.
We see the boy, your child.
Yeah.
In the movie.
Raising my son is the most important thing now, I think, on the farm.
Yeah. And how is his life with the farm together?
He's great. I mean, he understands why certain weeds exist, why plants exist, why certain pests exist, and he has an understanding about how things tie together. And I think I wish I knew what he knows at his age. I wish I knew that at 30, let alone 4. He's 4 years old. He knows all these things. It's really a wonderful feeling to be able to help him. One day we were riding through the farm the other day before coming out to Europe, and he said to me, "Dad, we're lucky." I said, "Why is that?" He goes, "'Cause we get to live inside of nature, and nature is what makes everything."
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it must be great as a child to live on a farm. It's
Yeah.
always like my dream.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you seen a lot of Switzerland yet?
No, this is the first place, but it's wonderful. I love Zurich.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you haven't seen the farms here?
Just when I flew over.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.